If you've been in a romantic relationship with a female covert narcissist, you eventually learned the hard way that most of their promises were empty and that the beautiful future you were promised was never going to materialize. And doesn't matter how hard you worked or how much you invested. I'm Lise Leblanc, therapist, author, and life coach, and recently I posted a question on my channel asking what has been the hardest part of recovering from a toxic relationship. Thank you to all of you who took the time to answer. Many of you said that letting go of the past was the hardest part, and more specifically, that future faking was one of the narcissist's most insidious tactics that was making it hard for you to let go. Even though you may rationally understand that it's over, that their promises were based on lies, and that the fake future was all an illusion. But there might still be that emotional part of you that's clinging to that perfect life that could have been. Okay, so let me quickly explain what future faking is. In essence, it's a manipulation tactic straight out of the narcissist playbook, designed to reel you in with promises of an idealized future that they don't intend to follow through on. Narcissists are preoccupied with fantasies of ideal love and a perfect life, and the goal is to get you fully bought in, to want it with your whole heart and soul so that you'll give everything and do anything to get it. So through a combination of love bombing and future faking, a narcissist will get you emotionally attached to an idealized past version of them where they made you feel alive and on top of the world. At the same time, they get you emotionally attached to a fantasy future. Meanwhile, in the present, they are extracting anything and everything they want and need from you. So they dangle this fantasy future just out of your reach, just close enough to keep you in check, keep you invested, and to get you giving more and more in order to win their approval. And when you disobey or disappoint them, they threaten to pull it all away, painting you as the one who failed and the one who is not deserving of this fantasy future. Then when they discard you, you might remain trapped in this illusion, thinking if you'd just done more, maybe done something different, worked a little harder, been a better man, maybe all of those dreams could have come true. And this can keep you stuck in a painful psychological loop, replaying all of the what ifs and maybes. Meanwhile, she's long gone and recreating the illusion with the next guy. Okay, so in no particular order, here are 7 critical things that you absolutely need to understand in order to release the fake persona and fantasy future that the narcissist created for you. Okay, so the first thing to understand is that a narcissist does not have the capacity to love you in a way that is healthy, mature, or genuine. A narcissist's love is unrealistic, transactional, and ultra conditional. It is based on you providing them with what they want and need, feeding their ego with constant validation to reflect their idealized image of themselves back to them. The fact is, narcissists love like toddlers or selfish teenagers. Their love is self-serving, self-centered, self-absorbed. So you're much more like a useful object to them than a person. Think of it as a shiny toy or a new car. At first they love it, give it all their attention. It's perfect, useful, exactly what they wanted. But then they get bored of it. Or maybe some shinier, newer thing comes along and they just toss it aside. It's just no longer needed. It's as simple as that. In the case of a covert narcissist, they are the supreme victim, and your job is to constantly validate that victim narrative, to cater to their fragile self-image, constantly reassure them of their suffering, their pain, how many injustices they're facing, how misunderstood they are, and they make you feel responsible for fixing their problems, but they don't want any solutions. And when you're no longer playing your role perfectly, they will find someone else who they perceive will do a better job. Because in their mind, you've failed. You've outlived your usefulness. So they distance themselves from you and discard you. The second thing to remember is that a narcissist is like a hungry ghost. They have this insatiable appetite for validation, but no matter how much attention, affirmation, admiration you give them, it's never enough. So anytime they're not getting enough validation, they feel empty, anxious, and dissatisfied, and they project those negative feelings onto you. Instead of recognizing that their problem is internal, they blame you for not being able to meet their insatiable needs, and they start looking for someone else who they think might do a better job, ultimately making you feel like you're not good enough, you're to blame for ruining the relationship, you're a failure, you're unworthy, and you're totally replaceable. And the idea of them being with someone else who could potentially get that happily ever after that you were promised can be unbearable. In the end, after giving your heart and soul to a narcissist, after sacrificing everything for them and submitting to them, it still won't be enough. And the next guy who gives his everything won't be enough either. Nothing or no one will ever be able to satiate their ego. Yes, she might act happy and post all over social media how amazing her new relationship is, but it's just another illusion designed to convince herself and the world that the idealized image of herself is real. Number 3 is the internalization of blame. When a narcissist inevitably starts projecting their internal dissatisfaction onto you, it becomes very easy to fall into the trap of thinking that if you just give more, do more, or change in some way, that you will eventually figure out how to earn their love and approval. But what you'll find is that the more you try to please her, the more you feed her ego and reinforce her belief that she is entitled to take without giving. And the deeper you get into this cycle, the more you take on the responsibility and the blame when the fantasy starts clashing with reality. You know, we all love the honeymoon phase of a relationship. And when it's with a narcissist, the stage is on turbocharge, so it feels even more exhilarating. But if you're a relatively healthy, well-adjusted person, you have the ability to recognize that this initial emotional intensity is not sustainable. Our brain chemistry will eventually settle down. It's just the way we're designed. And as we start to deal with the logistics and stressors of daily life and our flaws and differences come to light, it's not always easy, but we expect it and we adjust, and it leads to a more mature, long-lasting love. With a narcissist, as soon as the idealization and the love bombing, that constant attention and validation starts to fade and feelings start coming back down to earth, they blame you for not living up to their expectations and for ruining the fantasy future that they envisioned. And you may be partly to blame. I mean, I personally don't know anyone who is perfect in their relationship, but what a narcissist does is they shift the entire responsibility and all of the blame onto you. Instead of internalizing their anger, their shame, their disgust, their disappointment, and going into a death spiral of self-doubt, confusion, and a distorted view of yourself and of reality, try to understand that this was never about you. And even though you weren't perfect in this relationship, you are simply a scapegoat in a long line of scapegoats that came before you and will follow you. Number 4 is not being able to accept that the shared fantasy wasn't real. A narcissist is a master at drawing you into their delusional reality by preying on your deepest needs and desires to create a vision of the future that's irresistible to you. On some level, you may know it's too good to be true, but it feels real. It's intense. And when you get caught up in those emotions and you're invested, the narcissist starts using this as a weapon to control you. They constantly threaten to pull the rug out from under you, and by the time you recognize the illusion for what it is, you already have sunk so much into it that letting go might feel like you're losing everything. At some point, you do have to get honest with yourself and face the fact that this was a bad investment, and cut your losses, because the longer you stay, the more you lose and the harder it becomes to rebuild. So it's not about what you've invested or what you've already lost. It's about how much more you're willing to lose. Letting go of the fantasy means coming to terms with the fact that the relationship was based on lies. As painful as it is to accept that you've been chasing an illusion, this is really the only way to free yourself up from that cycle of false hope and self-blame. Number 5 is the inability to release the intense emotional memories or that idealized version of them. Sometimes we cling to the memory of the person we thought they were, and this can be incredibly seductive because we filter out all the bad moments and romanticize the good ones. You vividly remember the amazing version of them that you fell in love with, that charming, loving, attentive partner who made you feel so special and treated you like you were the center of their universe. Those memories are powerful, they're intoxicating, and you might still want to believe that that person really exists. They're in there somewhere. But as I'm sure you've learned, those were not her true colors. Her true colors only came out after the love bombing stage. And then the only time you saw that great side of her was when she wanted or needed something from you, or you started getting in touch with reality and pulling away. Then yes, maybe you got an awesome meal, great sex, or a thoughtful gift. But in reality, only a small percentage of the relationship was actually positive. Now you're being duped by your own mind and your memories. Maybe because staying trapped in this illusion seems less painful than accepting the cold, hard truth. Number 6 is the struggle to understand why they did what they did. The emotional whiplash of trying to understand how someone you loved so deeply and who you thought loved you could treat you in such a heartless way is devastating. And you might feel like you're trying to solve a puzzle with a million pieces, with a bunch of pieces that are missing and other puzzles mixed in. And as long as you're trying to make sense of their behavior with your own logic, you'll stay stuck in an endless loop of questions. You don't need to ask why a wolf acts like a wolf, or why a hyena acts like a hyena, or why a snake acts like a snake. It's just the way they're programmed. And a narcissist is programmed to behave in narcissistic ways. They're driven by self-preservation, a need for validation, power, control, and they lack capacity for true empathy or remorse. It's painful, but the only way to clear up the fog is to truly accept that they don't think the way you do, and their harmful behavior isn't a reflection of you, but of their disorder and their programming. Number 7 is the hope that the narcissist can change. The truth is, narcissism can't be fixed with unconditional love, patience, or by giving them everything they want. Narcissistic defense mechanisms are deeply embedded in their personality, and meaningful change is incredibly unlikely and rare. So if you're still in love with the potential of who they could be or who you thought they were, it is worth questioning your definition of love. Ask yourself what you truly believe love is, and reflect on the kind of love you experienced or witnessed growing up. If you grew up in an environment where love was conditional, manipulative, or linked to earning approval, you might be subconsciously seeking that same kind of love from your current relationship. If you need help breaking free from a toxic relationship, please reach out to a therapist in your area and consider my toxic relationship recovery program that I linked in the description section of this video. If you found this content helpful, I would really appreciate it if you took a moment to comment, to share your experience, and to learn more about how to break a trauma bond. Please click on the link above.